Guys, so this video is going to be another continuation of my ending of my Disney movie marathon. I actually filmed this video prior to actually finishing my marathon and before going to Disneyland, but I was reviewing the footage and I just really hated it because I was really tired when I filmed it, and also Sam was sitting in the corner and I just felt very like awkward filming with him like right over there. So I just completely scrapped the footage and I'm going to restart. I have a couple more coming after this. This is going to be my list of underrated Disney movies. I have a few things that I mean when I say underrated. One, it's a movie that people barely talk about. There's a few movies on here that some people have never heard of, or that just don't get the talk that they need to get. Two, there's nothing surrounding these movies in any of the Disney parks. For example, how in Disneyland there's the Snow White ride, there's a Pinocchio ride, there's a Peter Pan ride. There's no rides or attractions or characters or anything like that around this. There's no characters that you can meet in the parks, and if you can meet them, they're extremely rare, only come out during like parties and stuff. And the third thing that makes me think of a movie being underrated is just when you can find absolutely zero merch to go along with these. Like, you really have to dive deep into the delves of the internet to try to find something relatable to these movies. Like, there's nothing in particular in the parks or anything, or in like the Disney store that you can purchase that like is centered around these movies. So again, like in my other video, I have all my notes on my iPad here. So if I'm looking down a lot, that's what I'm looking at. It's just my notes. So just to start this, I just want to say there are certain movies that Disney has that when every time you walk into a store, whether it's the Disney store or like a pop culture store like Hot Topic or something, you can always find a buttload of merch and stuff to go along with these movies. And I'm going to list 3 examples here. I have absolutely nothing against these movies. I love these movies. One of them in particular I love. But whenever you walk into these kinds of stores, there is never a time that they don't have something revolving around these movies at these stores. And those movies are Alice in Wonderland, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Lilo and Stitch. There is always stuff to do with those movies in these types of stores. Like, my point of making this video is just because I think there are other movies that deserve the recognition that these 3 movies have that need to be recognized more, because they are absolutely amazing. Again, like I said, I have nothing against those 3 movies. I love Lilo and Stitch very, very much. It's very near and dear to my heart. But there are just other movies out there that I feel need the same attention that has been given to these 3 movies. This list is 100% my own opinion. If there's a movie on here that you really don't like, that's great. We're all allowed to like and dislike different movies, but these are just the movies that I felt no one talks about and that I personally absolutely love. I won't be giving away any big plot points or anything to these movies, but I do think it's best for me to warn you that I may talk about the plot at some point, so I'm gonna throw in a spoiler warning right here. If you haven't seen any of these movies, maybe just skip this video and wait till my next one comes up. I've made some notes about a lot of these, but a lot of them I don't have a ton of notes on, so I might be blabbling a lot in this video, and I do have quite a few honorable mentions that I'm gonna say at the end. One more thing before I get started on the actual list. I have these listed in alphabetical order just for myself. I'm not starting off with my least favorite and going to my most favorite. These are honestly just all in alphabetical order, so there's no list or ranking as I'm going through these. So the first one is the movie Atlantis. I love this movie. I know it came out in like the time and period where Disney was kind of like meh, like was going through a meh period with its films, but I love this movie. I think it's so funny, it's so cute. There's a lot going on in it. There's adventure, there's comedy, there's a little bit of romance, but I feel like it more touches on the friendship factor than it does like the romance factor. So I think that's really good to see. Like, it's really good to not have like a distinct couple in this movie. So I really like that about this movie, but it's just so well done. I love Michael J. Fox as Milo. I think he does an amazing job. I love absolutely every single character in this movie. They all have their own personal like backstory that you kind of get to learn about, and I just think it's so well done and just does not get the credit it deserves. Like, there is absolutely nothing about Atlantis anywhere. And they could make a really awesome freaking ride on Atlantis. They really could, but they just didn't for whatever reason. I think it was just based on when it was released. Next movie is A Bug's Life. This movie was my favorite Pixar movie for the longest time, and it still sits up as one of my top Pixar movies. A lot of people don't like it very much, and I just don't get why not. I think it's so cute, it's so well done, and I feel like a lot of people could really relate to it, especially to Flick, because he tries so hard and all he wants to do is help out, and just everything he touches fails. And I feel like a lot of people could relate to that, like growing up. I feel like there's a lot of kids out there who probably feel like no matter what they do, no matter what they try, just nothing ever goes right for them. And I feel like they could really relate to his character in that sense, because he tries so hard and all he wants to do is prove himself, and nothing ever goes right. And even like when he finally thinks he has made the colony accept him, sure enough, nope. Something else happens. It's so well done and I love it. Also, it contains one of my absolute favorite lines from Pixar or even Disney, and that's the line, pretend it's a seed, okay?
Pretend it's a seed, okay?
I love that line. A lot of people don't get it, but I actually have like a really heartfelt thing with that line and with that quote, and it's kind of like transpired into my relationship with Sam. That movie means so much to me. Next is Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time. I know that people probably hate Disney sequels. I too have quite a few Disney sequels that are just like, in my opinion, but Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time is amazing. It is hilarious. There's Cinderella and then there's Cinderella 2, which is kind of like, it's not terrible, but it's not the best. Cinderella 3 is amazing. I've noticed in my marathon watching a lot of them that, and lots of sequels are just kind of like clips all thrown together. And I'll get into that in my, I think my next video I'll probably post, which is like my movies that I did not like during this marathon. This one was actually its own story, which is amazing. Cinderella 2, it's just clips after clips after clips. But this is its own entire story, and it's so well told, and it's so funny. I've joined quite a few Disney groups on Facebook, and one person posted a video from that movie, like just like a short like 30-second clip from that movie, and it is so funny. And I could not believe all the comments of people saying like that, how great this movie was and how do not more people know about it. And it's true. This movie is great. I watched all 4 Cinderellas with Sam. We watched the original, we watched the new live action one, Cinderella 2, and then Cinderella Twist in Time. And Sam even said, he straight up admitted, and he is a person who hates sequels. He cannot stand a lot of the Disney sequels, and he straight up said, I think that was my favorite. Out of all 4 Cinderellas, that's my favorite. And I don't blame him. It's amazing. Okay, the next movie, or actually the next 2 movies I'm going to talk about. Everybody knows about these movies and everybody loves these movies, but there's just nothing going on when it comes to these movies. Like no rides, no attractions, no nothing, nothing. So the first one is The Emperor's New Groove. That movie is hilarious. When I was just in Disneyland with my 2 friends, we quoted that movie like nobody's business. The 3 of us love that movie, and I know a lot of other people love that movie, and we were just constantly quoting certain things of that movie. Like if we were pretending to be sneaky, we'd have like our own theme music like Kronk does. We just constantly quoted that movie. Before we were going on this trip, we would quote this movie in our conversations with each other. And I think again, it's because this movie came out in like the meh period of Disney films. Like I don't know the exact years, but I think that came out in the same kind of generation as Atlantis. And so I think because of that, it doesn't have a lot of hype about it, but it is so funny. If you haven't seen The Emperor's New Groove, you need to check it out because you will not be disappointed. My sister, she watched it a million years ago. I think we all went to see it in theaters and she thought it was funny, but she recently rewatched it, and even she has said, like, I can't believe how funny this movie is. She's like, how did I forget how funny this movie is? Because it's so good and it's just so funny. And the next movie I'm going to talk about, again, same thing. This movie, you can meet the characters because they're some of the classics, but it's a goofy movie. This movie has really taken on a whole new form for me since I began seeing Sam, because he has always said that his dad was exactly like Goofy. Sam actually lost his father a few years back, so it holds a big place in his heart that he watches this movie and he's just genuinely reminded of his father. I know how much he loved his father. It holds a special place in my heart because of just the relationship I share with Sam. But even before that, I loved this movie. It was so funny. And I even have a great story that I can now share with you guys. When I first filmed this video, like I said, this was before I went to Disneyland. And now I have been to Disneyland because I'm wearing some new clothing that I got in Disneyland. While I was there, I was wearing a sweater that I ordered off a website called RedBubble. And I've talked about RedBubble before. I freaking love them so much, and they're actually one of the great websites where you can actually find some certain things to go with, like, underrated movies. But anyway, I bought a sweater that was kind of like a concert merch sweater for Powerline, which if you've watched a Goofy movie, you know who Powerline is. He's like a rock pop singer that's a huge person and that Max and all his friends love. We actually got to meet Max at the Plaza Inn. We went there for breakfast, and Max was one of the characters who was walking around, and we met him. And he saw my sweater, and I'm just going to insert the clip here. If you haven't seen any of my Disneyland vlogs yet, you may not have seen this, or if you have, you may already know what I'm going to show here, but just watch this clip. Amazing. So Max saw my Powerline sweater, and him and I did the perfect cast together, and that was probably one of the highlights of my trip. I mean, there was a lot going on that trip that was amazing, but that was one thing that almost took the cake. And I remember sitting down after that happened and my two friends being like, how do you know the perfect cast? It's just because I love that movie so much. I love everything to do with it, so I learned the perfect cast on my own, and I'm so thrilled that Max knew it too, and we were able to do it together. When I posted it on a Facebook group that I'm on, I got so many comments about it. Same thing as The Emperor's New Groove. Everyone that I talk to loves this movie, and everyone that I talk to says how amazing it is, but there's just not enough going on around these two movies. The next movie I want to talk about, this is really funny because this is actually not only Tori, who's one of my best friends, but actually Sam's favorite Disney movie, and it's so underrated, and even this one is impossible to find any kind of merch or anything for, and that is The Great Mouse Detective. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's so funny. I think it's so well done, and we all just need to take a moment to appreciate the fact that Ratigan was in this whole thing trying to take over the, like, mouse monarchy or whatever they have going on in Mice England. He was trying to, like, take it over and take over the queen. In all his schemes and all his plans, he was like, hold on guys, I just need to take a minute and I need to record a song of me singing that I defeated Basil. And it was probably like everyone was like, dude, we gotta go. And he's like, no, I need to record this song just to rub in Basil's face that I defeated him. Next movie is Homeward Bound. This is one of the very few animal talking movies that I actually enjoy. Obviously, like, I enjoy movies like Lady and the Tramp because they're animated, but I really just cannot stand live action. Hello, Coda. I really just can't stand live action movies where they digitally make the animals' mouths move like they're talking. All the, like, Snow Bunny movies and stuff where they animate the animals' mouths to move, or like Beverly Hills Chihuahuas, can't stand those movies. But Homeward Bound is different. They don't actually animate their mouths. You know the actor's voice who is voicing each animal, but they don't make their mouths move. They've just trained them to do the things that they need to do for this film. They don't make them talk or anything. Like I said, you can hear the voices, you know who's actually speaking for which animal. So I like that aspect of it, but also, again, it's hilarious. I love the animals in it. This movie, there are 2 moments in it that I'm not going to talk about, but they do actually like make me cry quite a bit. If you're an animal lover, I highly recommend this movie. Like, it'll really touch your heartstrings. If you have a pet, especially like an older pet, or if you've lost a pet or something like that, it'll really hit you in the heartstring. Next is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. There's not a lot to really say about this movie. I don't think it's as underrated as the rest of them. I wanted to add this to my list because I think this has one of the most underrated villains out of lots of Disney movies, because to be frank, Frollo burns down Paris because he wants to bang Esmeralda. It's the sad and ugly truth. There's no other villain out there that goes that far for such a like minuscule kind of a deal. Seriously, he has a whole song that when you're an adult and you're rewatching it, you're like, oh, like when you're a kid, you don't really understand what's going on, but as an adult, it's like, oh, I see what you did there and why Frollo is all wacky. So I do really love this movie. I love Hunchback of Notre Dame very, very much. It was one of the only things I actually like really wanted to see and wanted to go to Paris for, was to see Notre Dame. So I do love the movie very much. I think it's so well done. I love the music in it. I just really needed to throw it on my list here because of Frollo. This is a movie, but also a TV show. The TV show is Phineas and Ferb, and then their movie, Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension. This TV show is hilarious. I'm really happy I've gotten a chance to watch it again through Disney Plus. I do have a few episodes on DVD, but they've never released like the entire collection or anything, but now they have it all on Disney Plus, which I'm thrilled about because I love this show. It really holds a place in my heart because my little brother and I absolutely loved this show together. We watched the very first episode together, the roller coaster episode. I remember him and I just laughing our heads off at this show and thinking it was so silly and so funny. And I remember being on vacation watching them with him, and him and I just sitting in the back of the car watching this on a portable DVD player, just laughing our heads off at how funny and how silly it is. I know a lot of people complain about it, but every single episode is the exact same thing. And to me, that's what makes it hilarious, is you know what's gonna happen. You know that Phineas and Ferb are gonna do something, that Perry's gonna go off to defeat Dr. Doofenshmirtz and his crazy shenanigans. You know that Candace is gonna get this close to busting Phineas and Ferb just for something to happen to completely get rid of it. And yes, that happens in every single episode. But it's just so funny to see how every single episode plays out like that. The movie was freaking fantastic. I remember being very upset when that movie came out because I had to work that night. I remember just being ticked that I couldn't watch it the night it released. I remember coming home from work and my brother just wanting to spill all about that movie, and I was like, shut up, I don't want to hear anything about it. And then a few weeks later being really excited when I found it on DVD and like running home to watch it with my brother that evening. And my brother and I to this day quote so many lines from that movie. Even today, him and I are quoting lines from Phineas and Ferb because it just was such a thing that him and I really enjoyed and really loved. My next one I want to talk about is number 1, number 2, and number 3, Pirates of the Caribbean. I wasn't the biggest fan of 4 and 5. 4 kind of felt out of place for me. I felt like it didn't really add to the story. 5 still kind of did because it still included like Will and Elizabeth, kind of. It had more of a place, but still kind of not really. I see a lot of hate, especially around the 3rd movie. And I love the first 3. I think the first 3 Pirates movies are amazing. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies are what I wanted the Haunted Mansion movie to be, because I really loved the idea of taking a classic Disney attraction and giving it a plot and a story. I'll talk about it in another video, but I was really disappointed with what they did with the Haunted Mansion, because the Haunted Mansion is my favorite ride. I was really excited when they were trying to do it again with Pirates, and I feel like they succeeded. Like I said, the first 3 I loved. I would have been a-okay if they had never made 4. I feel like a lot of people like the first one and then don't really like the second or third one, and I just don't get it. Out of the 3, the second one is probably my least favorite. That's not saying I don't like it. It's just my least favorite out of the 3 because it's the one that contains the least amount of Geoffrey Rush, and I love Geoffrey Rush. He's one of my favorite actors, but it's still really good, and I really like the storyline that all 3 hold. To be completely honest, like, it's just a beautiful movie when you really think about it. How they decided to come up with the entire crew aboard the Flying Dutchman. Let's take a man and give him tentacles on his face, and let's take this guy and give him a hammerhead shark head. And let's take this guy and he's a shell or a clam or a sea turtle or something. The way that they did it was insane. Like, I love the crew of the Flying Dutchman. It's so insane how they did all that. And then also in the third one, the fact that they had a battle at sea during a hurricane, and also the fact that they just threw a wedding in there. It was so well done. If you don't like those movies because, let's say, the third one is too long, I get it, it's a really long movie. How can you not appreciate that end battle? It is just amazingly well done. I love it. And even if you can just like fast forward through the entire movie and just watch that end battle, like, you have to admit that it's worth it. Another thing I just have to touch on is the score for Pirates of the Caribbean is phenomenal. I saw this post once on Facebook or something. It's like, there's nothing you can't do if the Pirates of the Caribbean theme song is in the background. And it's so true, because it's just so like I just love the score for Pirates of the Caribbean. I think it's one of my favorite scores. So the next one I want to talk about, again, kind of along the same lines as Hunchback of Notre Dom, where it's not as underrated as the rest of these movies, but there's one character in particular that I need to talk about. So this movie is The Princess and the Frog. Believe it or not, I'm not actually going to talk about the villain in this movie, even though the Shadow Man is by far one of my favorite villains. I'm actually going to talk about Charlotte. In The Princess and the Frog, Charlotte is Tiana's best friend. And at the beginning of the movie, you see them kind of growing up together, they're kids, and Tiana comes from a very poor family. Charlotte comes from an extremely wealthy family, but they're still best friends. She never treats her any less than a true friend. Like, she never shames her or makes her feel bad for where she is in life and the fact that she doesn't come from money like Charlotte does. All she does is kind of support Tiana in every way that she can. When Charlotte has a party, she hires Tiana to like do all the food and stuff for it. She's very supportive of Tiana, and I love that about her. But also, the entire movie, all Charlotte wants is to marry a prince and be a princess. There are multiple times in this movie where she puts that dream to the side to be a friend to Tiana. This is one movie where I will mention a spoiler, so I'm going to warn you right now. I'm going to spoil a little bit of this movie if you haven't seen it yet. I'll put a timestamp here for if you want to skip ahead if you haven't seen it. At the beginning of the movie, Tiana is at this party that Charlotte's having, and Charlotte is dancing with a prince, and she's so happy. She has her prince, yada yada yada. And Tiana falls over and a whole bunch of food falls on her and her dress is ruined. They're at like a masquerade party, so it's her costume and it's ruined. So Charlotte goes up to Tiana and sees that she's fallen over and her dress is ruined. Without blinking an eye, Charlotte picks up Tiana and says to the prince, "I'll be right back." She makes him second and fully takes care of Tiana, brings her upstairs, gets her cleaned up, puts her in a new dress, takes care of her best friend. And once she sees that Tiana, she's feeling better because she's changed, then she goes back to her prince. Like I said, without blinking an eye, she sees that Tiana is in distress and puts it all to the side to be a friend to Tiana. And then at the very end of the movie, Charlotte is left with the decision to either kiss Prince Naveen, marry him, and then give the money to Tiana so Tiana can open her restaurant. but she sees that Tiana and Naveen truly love each other. Instead of still kissing Naveen and following through on marrying him so she can be a princess, she kisses Naveen to turn Naveen and Tiana back into humans without even, like, again, batting an eye and considering, I'm not going to be a princess anymore. It doesn't even, like, faze her that this is her dream coming true. If she kisses Naveen and marries him, she's going to be a princess. That is her dream. And it doesn't even, like, click into her mind. As soon as she sees that Tiana and Naveen truly love each other, it doesn't even, like, faze her that she won't be a princess anymore if she lets Tiana and Naveen be together. And she completely gives up being a princess so that Tiana, her best friend, can be happy. I know I rambled a little bit about that movie, but that holds a really big place in my heart because I just love that they wanted to have this entire aspect of friendship in this movie. Like I said when I talked about Atlantis, it was more of a friendship than it was a relationship. And even though this was Princess and the Frog and there was still a love story going on, I really loved that they took a moment to really emphasize, like, what a true friend would do and, like, true friendship, because I feel like there's not a lot of that in movies nowadays, and I really loved that they did that. 2 more movies and then we're on to my honorable mentions. Next movie is Tarzan. I know as of recent you can meet Tarzan at Animal Kingdom in Walt Disney World, which is very exciting because I love Tarzan. But for the longest time, like, you can never meet them. I know there used to be a Tarzan show at Animal Kingdom, and for whatever reason, they got rid of it, and now it's the Finding Nemo musical, which I'm not a fan of. I was very disappointed when they got rid of the Tarzan show because I love Tarzan very much. I don't think it gets nearly enough credit as it deserves. I feel like because it's not like a classic musical in the sense that they aren't the ones singing, like, there's songs in the movie, but it's not like Tarzan, it's not Jane who are actually singing. Not a lot of people appreciate it as a true Disney film, and it totally needs to be seen as a Disney film. It is still an amazing story. It is still so well done. I love the fact that animators watched professional snowboarders and professional skateboarders to really get an idea of how Tarzan, like, swings through the trees and stuff. It was very well done the way that they animated Tarzan, like, swinging and being an ape, basically. And back to the music. The music from Tarzan is amazing. I know that, again, it's not the actual characters singing it, but the soundtrack from Tarzan is incredible. Phil Collins did a bomb-ass job of that soundtrack, and I love it. One more to talk about, and this is actually a TV show, and it is The Weekenders. No one knows about this show. Like, really, no one knows about it. I don't remember how Sam and I got on the conversation of The Weekenders, but we were talking about old Disney TV shows, and I think The Weekenders came up, and he was like, no one knows about that show, and it is so good. I remember running home after school to be able to watch that show after school because it was so funny. They were very overdramatic about how they told certain stories, but at the same time it was still relevant things that kids those ages deal with. For example, they talk about, like, having crushes on girls, or your friend that you've been friends with for a long time suddenly starts dressing different and starts hanging out with different people. And it's like, these are all things that normal kids deal with. Even though it is very dramatic, I feel like the advice that they learn from these things is relevant and totally relevant to the situations. It's a very common thing that Tino's character, his mom always gives him advice. I feel like the advice that she gives is very relevant to everyday situations, whether it is these, like, little things, even though they're very dramatic in the TV show. I love that show. Sam actually got me the 2 seasons for our anniversary, and it was awesome to actually get to, like, rewatch them and relive them, even as an adult now, and I don't really have necessarily these problems anymore, but it was still so much fun to watch it because the show is still hilarious. So now I'm going to talk about my honorable mentions. These are movies that I still absolutely love. I still think are completely underrated, but I just didn't have a lot to say about them, so that's why I didn't necessarily include them. Also, to make this video a lot shorter because I have a lot of honorable mentions. Here are my honorable mentions: Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Brother Bear, any of the Disney nature movies, Fantasia, The Finest Hours, The Good Dinosaur, Kim Possible, So the Drama, Meet the Robinsons, Mighty Joe Young, Monsters Incorporated, Oliver and Company, the 2016 Pete's Dragon, Prom, Sword in the Stone, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Those are all my movies. If you guys agree with my list, please let me know down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Let me know any movies that you think I didn't include that maybe should have been on this list. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for my next continuation of my Disney movie marathon wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.